Well, if your main New Year's resolution is to make no New Year's resolutions, you may be on the right track. There are better ways to go about improving your health and well-being and save some money at the same time just by taking a different approach. Susan Watson is a registered dietitian here in Winnipeg. Her team at A Little Nutrition helps people improve their nutrition, manage their nutrition-related chronic diseases, and especially they help people get back into the kitchen. Good morning.
Good morning, Laurie.
Susan, why is it important for us to get back into the kitchen?
It's really important to be cooking home-cooked meals because if we're relying on convenience foods and fast food and takeout, those foods are very high in sodium, fat, and sugar and are usually about 3 times the amount of calories that we need to just live at a healthy life. And so if we're over-consuming, it could have big impacts to our health.
What kind of impacts?
Well, we could end up gaining a little bit of extra weight that we don't necessarily want. It could lead to chronic disease like high cholesterol or blood pressure. And, by cooking your meals at home, you're able to control all of those things, plus boost your nutrition by having foods that are, high in fiber versus some of the more processed white flour foods that you would get at a restaurant or takeout meal.
Now, is there a name for this approach that you take to better living and better eating?
Yes, I like to call what I do lifestyle nutrition. So I focus on areas of nutrition that we can really make an impact on our day-to-day life. I like to have the approach where we're really getting into people's lives, like into their kitchen, into their pantries, and helping them make better choices on an everyday basis. And so, something that we would do is talk to people about maybe, say, packing a healthy lunch for work instead of, grabbing something while you're at work at a restaurant or takeout. So, it's the things the little everyday things that matter, or maybe navigating the grocery store and teaching people how to purchase healthy foods or label reading when comparing different foods. So that's kind of what I like to call lifestyle nutrition.
So this isn't about making resolutions.
No, I think that resolutions and setting goals can be very misleading. And when we think about goals or resolutions, they rely heavily on inspiration or motivation and even willpower. And those can be very fleeting and definitely very misleading. So, goals, they also rarely have a starting point. Somebody might set a goal of, I want to stop eating out every day for lunch. And that might be their goal as a resolution. But they don't necessarily put together a plan in place to move from that idea and put it into action. So that's where we think that if you go and say, I want to form a healthy habit, that is going to be much better than thinking of setting a big, lofty goal or a New Year's resolution.
Right. And how long would you say it takes to develop a healthy habit? And what happens if you think you're going to develop a healthy habit, but you kind of fall off the wagon?
The first part is, how do you develop a healthy habit? And really that is taking a look at whatever task you want to achieve. So if it's, for example, not eating out anymore at lunch when you go to work, you want to take a look at breaking it down into something that is easily manageable, nothing too big. And these small little changes that you can do add up over time. So an example would be cooking extra food at supper time and packing that leftovers for lunch the next day. So you want to pair your habit that you want to do with something that you're already doing. And if you're already cooking supper, it's really easy to just cook up a little bit extra and pack it up versus in the morning when it's rushed and busy going, what am I going to pack for lunch, and have no idea or no plan in place. You want to take all that chaos out of it and think of, what am I already doing and how can I just do it at that same time and pair it with that activity.
Sounds like a much less stressful way of changing behavior.
Absolutely. And, we want to make it easy. We don't like we don't ever stick to anything that's going to be hard. So you want to kind of trick yourself into, doing these changes that are easy, but they have to be meaningful enough to make a change, right? So you can't just be thinking about doing it. You actually have to put a plan in place and an action to go ahead and do the work that needs to be done. But if it's too hard, if you're going to say, I'm going to start meal planning and I'm going to go ahead and spend 8 hours in the kitchen every Sunday, that might be a lot of work and a lot of behavior changes that you have to do, and also social aspects of your life that you have to give up. And you might only do that for a couple of weekends and then be like, it was too hard. And it probably was too hard, versus maybe breaking it down into smaller chunks.
Very good advice, but I'm going to ask you for one more piece of advice.
Sure.
2018 is just right around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
What's one thing we can do to get started on this path of having better habits as opposed to making futile resolutions?
If I was to say one thing, it would be to say that you want to commit to the long haul. So when it comes to habits, I think you had asked me before, what happens if you fall off, or what happens if you're having a hard time getting started, or how long does it take for a habit to actually stick and last? And we've heard before, it's 21 days until you form a new habit. That is the most misleading piece of information I've heard lately.
What?
Because it is. Because if you want to form a habit, there's no end. You're always going to get better. You're always going to improve. You're always taking a look at what you're doing and trying to do it better and more efficient.
Well, thanks for this very inspiring way of looking at things. It's sensible and approachable. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
And Happy New Year.
You too.
Susan Watson is a registered dietitian right here in Winnipeg.